The day I truly understood my step-grandson changed my life forever, though at the time, I didn't realize just how much. My name is William Bill Harris, and I was 72 years old when it happened. Life at that age tends to settle into a rhythm, slow and predictable. Mornings spent reading the newspaper over black coffee, afternoons tending to the garden, evenings dozing off in front of the television. It wasn't a bad life, but it wasn't exactly exciting either. I figured the biggest adventures were behind me. I certainly didn't expect that a quiet boy with a mop of messy brown hair and two big sneakers would crack my world open in the best way possible. The boy's name was Ethan. Ethan Morgan. He was my step-grandson. My wife, Linda, had a daughter, Karen, from her first marriage, and Karen had two children, Ethan and his younger sister, Sophie. Karen had married young, divorced young, and spent most of her adult life working long hours to support her kids. Because of that, Ethan and Sophie spent a lot of weekends and summers with us while they were growing up. Sophie was outgoing, bubbly, and had that effortless charm that made adults beam and pat her on the head. Ethan was different. He was shy, reserved, always with his nose in a book or sketching something in a tattered notebook he carried everywhere. When family dinners rolled around, he was usually the one tucked into the corner seat, quietly eating and nodding politely when someone spoke to him. I always thought he was a good kid, polite, respectful, but to be honest, I didn't think much beyond that. I figured he was just a quiet boy who would eventually grow out of it. That was until the weekend of my 72nd birthday. Karen had decided to throw me a big party, much bigger than I would have ever asked for. She rented a small hall, invited what felt like half the town, ordered catering, balloons, a cake the size of a wagon wheel, the works. I smiled and thanked her, but deep down, all I wanted was a quiet dinner with my family. Still, I understood it came from a place of love, so I went along with it. The day of the party was chaos from the moment I woke up. Linda was rushing around the house, directing people where to hang decorations, what tables needed setting up, barking into her phone about the caterer being late. Karen was equally frazzled, herding her kids and chatting with distant cousins I barely remembered. Sophie darted around the room, squealing with excitement. But Ethan disappeared. I noticed it about an hour into the party. Amid the buzz of conversation and music, I realized I hadn't seen Ethan once. Curious, and truth be told, desperate for a little peace and quiet myself, I slipped away from the crowd and wandered outside. It was early evening, the sun just starting to dip behind the trees, bathing everything in a soft golden light. I found Ethan sitting on the far edge of the porch steps, his knees pulled up to his chest, that familiar tattered notebook balanced across them. He was scribbling something, utterly lost in concentration. For a moment, I just watched him. There was something so peaceful about him, something that didn't fit in with the noisy, bustling party inside. Maybe that was the first time I really saw him, not just as Karen's shy boy, but as someone in his own right. I walked over slowly and lowered myself onto the steps next to him, groaning a little as my knees protested. "What are you working on there, champ?" I asked, keeping my voice light. Ethan startled, almost dropping his notebook. He clutched it against his chest instinctively, his cheeks flushing pink. "Nothing," he mumbled. I smiled. "Doesn't look like nothing. Mind if I take a look?" He hesitated. I could see the battle behind his eyes, the instinct to hide versus the desire, maybe, to share. Slowly, he turned the notebook around and held it out. It wasn't just doodles or random scribbles like I'd expected. It was music. Handwritten musical notes on staffs, lyrics written neatly in the margins. I blinked, stunned. "You write music?" I asked. Ethan shrugged, like it was no big deal. "I guess. Just for fun." "Can you play it?" I asked before I could think better of it. Again, he hesitated. Then, after a moment, he nodded. From behind one of the porch chairs, he pulled out a small, battered keyboard. It looked like it had seen better days. Some of the keys were chipped, the plastic casing cracked, but he set it on his lap with a care that told me it was precious to him. He positioned his fingers over the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The music started off soft, almost uncertain, as if he was still deciding whether he trusted me enough to share it fully. But as he went on, the melody grew stronger, more confident. It wasn't flashy or loud. It was beautiful, haunting even, sad and hopeful all at once. I sat there, completely still, the notes wrapping around me like a warm blanket on a cold night. I could feel the emotion pouring out of him, even though he hadn't spoken a word. It was like he was telling me a story through the keys. When he finished, the last note lingering in the air, I realized I was blinking back tears. "Ethan," I said, my voice rough. "That was incredible." He gave me a small, awkward smile, clearly unsure whether I was being sincere. "I mean it," I said. "You have a real gift." He ducked his head, embarrassed, but I could see the flicker of pride in his eyes. We sat there for a long while after that, not talking much, just sharing the quiet. Over the weeks and months that followed, something changed between us. Ethan started coming over more often, not just with Karen and Sophie, but on his own. Sometimes we'd sit on the porch, him playing his keyboard, me listening. Other times he'd show me new pieces he was working on, asking for my opinion. I didn't know much about music, but I knew how to listen, and that seemed to be enough. He told me once, in a rare burst of openness, that he'd always felt invisible at family gatherings. Like everyone expected him to be someone he wasn't, louder, sportier, more normal. But music, he said, was the one place he felt like he belonged. Hearing that broke my heart a little. I thought about all the times I'd seen him fade into the background and hadn't done a thing about it. But it also made me grateful that, however late, I had the chance to really see him. One afternoon, a few months later, Ethan showed up on my porch with a wide grin on his face, a sight so rare I almost didn't recognize it. "I got accepted," he said, thrusting a letter at me. It was an acceptance letter to a prestigious music academy downtown, a place where kids like him, kids with talent and heart, could learn and grow. I pulled him into a hug, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "I'm proud of you, kiddo," I said. "So proud." When he pulled back, his eyes were shining. "You're the first person I told," he admitted. "I knew you'd get it." That simple statement meant more to me than I could say. That night, after he left, I sat on the porch by myself, thinking about how easy it is to overlook the quiet ones, about how sometimes the people we assume we know are carrying entire worlds inside them, waiting for someone, anyone, to care enough to ask. Ethan taught me that. He reminded me that understanding doesn't come from making someone fit into your idea of who they should be. It comes from meeting them where they are, exactly as they are, and loving them there,